Welcome into the Guilty as Charged podcast, Bold fam. We are here with the NFL Network's Peter Schrager. You also know him from Fox NFL Kickoff and Good Morning Football. Peter, how are you doing today?
Bro, I'm great. I'm in Brooklyn, New York, and I just got that rock riff to start the show. But I emailed you earlier today. I said, "Are you sure you want me on this week after what was one of the most embarrassing Chargers losses in recent memory? Are you sure?" And you said, "Let's talk." All right, let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough week for the Chargers, but it was also a tough week for some of your $1 million picks with Bill Simmons. You had the Bengals and the
Yeah.
Bucks, and so that was unfortunate. It was not a tremendous week for anybody involved. But I wanted to get your take on the NFL Week 8 in general, and then we'll specifically go into the Chargers. So what stuck out to you this week?
The week of the upset, I think 8 straight underdogs won. So you mentioned I had a big bet with Bill Simmons where we went big on the Bucks, the Bills, and the Bengals on just the money line, meaning to the non-gamblers out there, they just have to win. And those were teams that had double-digit points for it. They all lost. So for those ones, it was tough. But I also think the week of the backup quarterback, you saw guys like Mike White for the Jets beat the Bengals. You saw obviously Cooper Rush on Sunday night. And then, Trevor Siemian to come in for the first time really in extended play since 2017 to beat Tom Brady in a game head to head. That's the NFL for you, Al. I mean, that's what it is, dude. And I kind of love it. Like, as much as it's tough to predict and we look like we're chickens with our heads cut off talking about the NFL week to week, crowning the Bengals one week, crowning the Bucks another week, and then seeing them lose to backup quarterbacks. But that's the NFL. That's kind of why I dig it.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of parody. I was watching that Sunday night football game and I turned it on for the first time and I was like, there's this ginger quarterback in Dallas and it's not Andy Dalton. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is this is a little bit weird. So yeah, but Cowboys came out with a big win there. I guess we'll specifically get into the Chargers now. What did you kind of take away from Chargers Patriots and how that played out?
All right. So I did watch the game. And then I did my reading this morning, which I always do before the Good Morning Football show. And then I went deeper on the Chargers. And I feel like you miss Brian Bulaga. You miss some of these offensive line. The offense does not look like it did the first few weeks. And so whereas the run defense is the national storyline, they can't stop them. They were fine against the run. The defense did all right yesterday. I have fears that the offense is out of sync. And when you have a week off and you can self-scout, but also scout the other team, and you come out and you have those first 2 drives and it's like, all right, we're scoring, we're making it happen. And then to just completely go, I guess, dull, I would say. And I know that like this is like a Chargers pot and I don't want to be, I just got to be honest. It's, that bye week should be used to be prepared, be ready. And the quotes after the game were conflicting because Staley comes out and is like, yeah, we expected they would go zone. And then Herbert comes out and he says, we were expecting man. So I just feel like guys were on the same page. The defense really gave them fits, and that's 2 weeks in a row now with really good defensive coordinators, whether it be Nick Martindale, and then you have the bye week, and then Bill Belichick. It's like, is this offense going to be what we hoped it would be, and is this offense going to be able to score enough in an AFC that is so wide open right now? That offense, it needs to be Herbert leading them to victory. It's late. It can't be we're going to hang around and our defense is going to get the job done.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think there was a lot of criticism of Joe Lombardi's game plan, sort of taking the ball out of Herbert's hands a little bit at times, or Herbert just having some of these kind of errant throws. It's hard to win when your guys are dropping the ball too. And the Chargers have led the league in drops for a while. So that's just kind of the tough part about yesterday. So the trade deadline is obviously in full swing. An hour before we get on, Von Miller gets traded to the Rams. I wonder what your thoughts on that are. And is there a trade target that you could see maybe the Chargers going after that you think could boost their stock this second half of the season?
What's interesting with the Von Miller thing? It's like, if it happened before the season, I would say, okay, like the Rams, they really are all in. But Broncos won yesterday, and you guys lost yesterday. So, like, the Broncos are 4-4, and the Chiefs are not necessarily tearing it up. And you guys are now losers of 2 straight. Like, the Broncos are relevant. So I was surprised that they would ship off. I still think their best player on their roster, but it just shows what the Rams are all about. They see a window, and I live in Brooklyn, New York, and it's like the Nets do the same thing. It's like, here's our window. Like, we're not worried about 2023. You can complain about it on Twitter. But we're looking to win right now. And I respect the hell out of that kind of approach to live life and okay, let's go for it. And that's what the Rams are doing across town. Chargers, big free agent signings, right? Like I think Corey Linsley being the highest paid center was a big power move. I think some of the other moves on the line, Matt Filer, like what they did with that was impressive. But I don't see the Chargers, selling off first and second round. That's just not in their nature, and I don't think that's going to be what Tom Telesco does. And I don't know if there's necessarily a player out there. I've heard Fletcher Cox be mentioned as a potential acquisition for some team. I'm not sure if I see the Chargers doing that. The other name that was intriguing was that the Rams put out, not put out, but Deshaun Jackson basically put it out himself that he wanted to be traded. Do they need a deep threat in LA across town, and would that keep him home and kind of satisfy him in a way? Maybe, but is 34-year-old Deshaun Jackson the difference between the Chargers winning the AFC West and not winning the AFC West? I'm not sure. So I don't see it, but I don't know. We could see in the next couple hours. I don't know when this podcast goes live, but by the time we do it, they might have already swung a trade for some major piece, and I would just be egg on my face here from the East Coast talking about the Chargers.
Yeah, the egg on both of our faces would continue from the last week if some trade goes through. But yeah, no, like you said, I think Deshaun Jackson could happen, and that would help the team just because they do need a little bit of speed there. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, while they're good, they're not like the fastest guys certainly in the league, so that could help. But yeah, like you said, I think there's sort of this dialogue on Twitter between them as a team that's maybe a year away versus the contenders right now who are going for it, right? The Rams are clearly one of those teams.
I don't know, though, because in week 4 or week 5 when they beat Cleveland, I come on Good Morning Football every Monday, and I feel like I'm fake sometimes because I come out and I just react off of what I see, and I'm like, the Chargers are for real. They've slayed the dragon. They go for it on 4th down. They get these first downs, and Staley's changed the culture. He's freaking Ted Lasso, and their team, they're going to win it. And then, here we are 3 weeks later, and they haven't won since early October, and I'm, down on the Chargers a little bit because I feel like these are winnable games. Yesterday was a winnable game, and the Patriots, I don't know, handled them after those first few drives. It was like all of a sudden the offense went just cold, and it hasn't been good for a couple weeks now. So maybe a trade kickstarts them. Maybe it catalyzes them. I don't think they're a year away. If anything, you have to kick the Chiefs when they're down. The Chiefs are down right now. So maybe this is the year to go for it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point about the AFC West and the AFC as a whole being wide open, right? Like we just saw the Bengals lose to the Jets. They were the number 1 seed.
Titans lose Derrick Henry.
Right. Titans lose Derrick Henry. Baltimore has a lot of injuries that they're dealing with. So, there's always an opening. And so, as dismal as it seems for some Chargers fans, you're still right in the mix if you beat the Eagles this week, right? And go on a little bit of a winning streak, maybe. So, it's everything is still definitely wide open for the team. I also wanted to get your thoughts on maybe this offense. Is there a player on it that you think is being underutilized right now, or just your general thoughts on what you've seen from the offense based on your pre-expectations and maybe how everything has played out so far?
I just feel like, Lombardi's offense, I don't know what Lombardi's offense is because everyone thinks it's the Saints offense, but he ran a different offense in Detroit with Stafford. So it's like, what version are we getting? And I just feel like there's an inconsistency right now where Herbert, it was put the ball in Herbert's hands, let him win the game, never take it out of his hands, and just let's roll with Herbert. Just let it ride. And I feel like there's been a bit of a conservative nature to their game plan in the last few weeks. I feel like there's almost been a hesitancy. And to lose to Baltimore like that, all right, fine, get it out of your system. But then for quarters 2, 3, and 4 against New England to just kind of play like they haven't played earlier in the season, I would almost want to see Herbert up his game. And I know that sounds crazy to put it on the quarterback who's been sensational his first 2 years. But this team's going to live and die with that guy. So let's put it on him and let's let him win it.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think you want to see your quarterback definitely win the game for you, especially when you have a young talent like Herbert, and that's the frustration of a lot of Chargers fans right now.
Is there a guy? I mean, I'll ask you.
Yeah.
You follow the team. I mean, is there if I come out and I'm like, I need more Jared Cook, or I need more Guyton, who's the guy that you think is?
Right. Yeah. No, I definitely don't think it's they need Jared Cook or they need Guyton necessarily more. But I do think it's about getting guys involved, right? So you had Mike Williams, who had that torrid start, who's getting, he at some point was the leading receiver in the NFL, and now the last 2 weeks against Baltimore and against New England, right, sort of kind of gets shut out in both of those games. So it's you sort of do need him to step up. Austin Eckler kind of, had some moments yesterday, but, has sort of been hit or miss, also dealing with an injury. So I think you definitely do need those guys to step up. But yeah, it's just kind of the team around Herbert as a whole, as well as the play calling. So I wanted to ask you this because I know your Super Bowl pick prior to the season was Chiefs
Yeah,
Rams. So I know the
yeah.
Chiefs situation isn't great right now, but I do want to ask if you're sticking with that Super Bowl prediction, and who do you think, if you had to make a list, it can be however big or small as you want, of the Super Bowl contenders in the league right now?
All right, I like my Rams pick right now. I'm still feeling good. I like the Packers too. I
Yeah.
feel like they've won with a bunch of guys injured and with COVID and all that stuff. AFC is wide open. So I took the Chiefs in August, and I remember it was like in my head it was either going to be Chiefs or Ravens. I chose the Chiefs. Um, I think I'd be disingenuous to leave just yet. I need a couple more weeks. They play the Giants. I mean, we're doing this podcast now, so I don't know if it goes live, but they could lose to the Giants, and I'll be running away from the Chiefs. I'll be officially done with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But if they beat the Giants, they're 4-4. They're a game back in the division from the Raiders. They've got all this wherewithal, and I wouldn't want to face them in January. So as much as as a Chargers fan base, as much as you guys might hate the Chiefs, and they've been terrible, and you guys handled them in Arrowhead, and it was a way that I thought was alarmingly dominant. I'm not leaving them yet. I'm not leaving them probably until they. I need to get into November a little bit. I need to get into maybe Thanksgiving. Let's check in and let's see if we can change things. But I would say the teams I would circle right now in the AFC that are looking like absolutely true contenders are the Ravens. I would also circle the Bills, obviously. And then I can't say the Titans without Derrick Henry. I can't say you guys coming off 2 straight losses, and I can't say the Bengals off a Jets loss. So let's say Ravens and Bills are the forerunners, and I can't say Raiders just on the way they finished the last few seasons, where they're 6-3 every year and they end up missing the playoffs. So I would say my top 2 teams in the AFC right now, teams that I would believe in, put my faith in, institutional knowledge, I would say Bills and Ravens at the moment.
For sure. And then who do you got coming out of the NFC? I know you got the Rams, obviously, as your Super Bowl pick, but are there any
I
other
say
teams that you think can challenge
Rams.
them?
Yeah, Packers and Cowboys look really good, and then I don't want to face Tom Brady in the playoffs, so I would never cancel him out. The NFC is really top heavy. Like the top 6 teams in the NFC are kind of established, and it's your division leaders, and then it's the Saints, and then the Cardinals or the Rams, whoever you think the other team is, and then that 7th spot is like going to be someone weird. It's going to be the Niners or the Bears or the Eagles or if the Giants win a couple more, and then start getting into this weird territory with like the Panthers and Falcons. So I would say those are my teams in the NFC.
Right. I think that's definitely the trend, is just that the AFC is a little bit more even. There's, a bunch of teams that can still win it. And then the NFC is this really top heavy conference where it's maybe 3 or 4 teams and 3 or 4 kind of sleepers that are there, but not really in that kind of same contention. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the Chargers fan situation. So this has been sort of a dialogue all season. You go back to the Raiders game, they win that game, but the storyline was they get booed, and so there was that whole debate kind of coming out of that one. What do you sort of make about the Chargers nationally, and like what the situation is locally in LA? And so yeah, obviously coming out of that Raiders game, like I said.
Yeah, and yesterday too. I mean, look, very sensitive to this because I know Chargers fans don't like hearing it. I think it's BS, and they say, "Well, look at the Rams; they have empty stands sometimes, and look at the Chargers, and look at the Raiders. It's all the same." The Raiders game, it was all Eagles fans. All right, I get it. Bottom line is, like, if Herbert's on a silent count at home, that's not good. Like, that's not good. It has to change, and I don't blame the fans. They ripped a team from San Diego and placed them in LA, where there already is another team, and it's years and years of Raiders fans who were in LA during the LA Raiders times who despise the Chargers. So you have to grow it, and Herbert's the reason it's going to grow. And if you win, they will come. But like, I got to be honest. I have friends who are at the game, and they're like, it's mostly Patriots fans in certain pockets of this thing. So if Herbert's coming out and saying he had to be on a silent count during the Raiders game, and if yesterday it's all pockets of the building are New England fans, like, it is reality, and it's something that I don't blame the fans for, and I certainly don't blame the team for moving to LA. I don't know when that changes, and I think it only changes with more and more wins. So it's this like catch-22. No one's to blame. It's just a fact, and it has to change, and the only way to change it is by winning games.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Like we've seen even teams like the Rams, like you mentioned, if they have had a down year, that's sort of been like when fans haven't been at the games, and then when they do win, like fans are at the games. And I think part of it is also just LA is not quite like a football town yet. I mean, they're definitely much more about the Lakers and about the Clippers. About more so about the Lakers, but still,
But I think here's the thing. Like, I think the Chargers as an organization, like, I think Telesco has done all the right things as far as building the right roster. I think they got the quarterback, and I think the team is in itself new logo, new coach. Like, everything's cool. Like, it's all there. It's nothing to blame anybody. It's just gonna take a while. I live in Brooklyn, New York. Like, 99% of New York basketball fans are Knicks fans, and the Nets are a better team. Like, that's just what it is, and it's going to take a while because the Nets, they didn't come from Brooklyn. They're not a Brooklyn team. They're still the New Jersey Nets, and there's another fan base in the market. I think it's a build, and it's going to take a while. So there shouldn't be any sensitivity when someone identifies, hey, look, there's some Raiders fans in the building, and that's unfortunate. It should be all sold out with Chargers fans. It happens. It's what it is. It's going to take some time.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's going to take some time, in addition to, kind of like I said, we talk about like Philadelphia and Buffalo and like New York, like those are all kind of markets that whether the team's winning, the team's losing, they're going to be there all the time versus LA is a little bit more picky with that stuff, right? You sort of have to build that winning culture for fans to come in the building, right? So
if you're a cold weather team for the Patriots and you're like, oh, we've got an away game in LA in October. That's a cool trip. Let's go Halloween weekend to LA. Like, it's an attraction. So when you have these teams from these cold weather markets in November and December, like, that's a fun trip for like 8 guys to go on, or for a family of 6 to go on. Like, that's our winter vacation. That's a cool trip. We get to see our team in a football game, and we get to see SoFi. Like, that, it's a double-edged sword. It's not just because there's empty seats. It's because fans are willing to buy those seats, and it becomes an event, and it becomes something cool to go to. And again, West Coast team, new market, it's going to take a while. That's just it.
Right. For sure. And I mean, I relate to that a lot, actually, because, we were talking about potentially going to that Raiders game with my co-hosts in Vegas in January. It's like, cool. It makes a lot of sense.
It's cool
it's cool.
It's a fun trip.
Right. And like we said, Eagles fans, they're freezing in the cold right now, so they come over to the Raiders game and it's a trip to Vegas, right? So
exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, no, I definitely think it will take a little bit, but they are starting to build that. I wanted to also ask, what are some of your thoughts on Brandon Staley and this coaching staff right now? I know the stock on Lombardi isn't super high at the moment, but do you still believe in this coaching staff despite, say, these 2 losses they've taken in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, come on. Yeah, they're young. They're all new. I mean, let's take it one day at a time here, and let's take a deep breath here. I think Staley's been a revelation. He's been a superstar, and his handling of like the Gruden situation was A+ for a 38-year-old guy. And Lombardi is obviously going to be working it on offense, and they're going to figure themselves out. But I would say take a breath before we say, hey, what's going on? And let's start thinking about who's next at that position. I think it's been good. Sure. Herbert speaks the world of Lombardi, and I would go with that vibe of it, and let's see what happens.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that makes just a ton of sense. Like, Brandon Staley just still the revelation. Like, it's still crazy to me whenever they're on 4th and 4 and it's just like an assumption they're going to go for it. Like, they're not going to do anything else, right? So that's been a revelation of the NFL. I was hoping to see a little bit more about that because, statistically, you've had Bill Belichick, who's been one of the more conservative coaches on 4th down, and you've had Brandon Staley, who has been one of the more aggressive ones, but it didn't quite play out like that, unfortunately. That would have kind of been a nice battle.
You can't have 3rd and long every single time and expect great things to happen.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate part about yesterday.
I wish you had me on after the Browns game. I mean, it might have been a different tone here. I feel like I'm a miserable SOB on this podcast. I'm not trying to be.
No, it's okay. We're all a little bit fried after that game mentally, so it's a bit of a therapy session for sure. But yeah, Peter, it's been great having you on the show. Let the people know where they can find you, obviously on Good Morning Football, and let them know what you got coming out.
Don't worry about me. I'm supporting you guys. I love it. I love that you guys have this podcast. It's professionally done. You guys were patient with me. I know we've been emailing back and forth. I just appreciate coming on, and I'll be sure to promote this podcast. You guys know what you're talking about, and I love it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, man. Again, you can go follow Peter at PSchrags on Twitter. Go watch Good Morning Football, and see you guys next time.